All right, YouTube, live stream from the seminar. They're fixing to start, so y'all enjoy.
Sam, you can say something. You about ready? About ready? Okay. We're gonna start, we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna set the table for Mike. We know we have at least 3 more coming, maybe more. We don't wanna disrespect you by asking you to wait. I think they'll understand. Doc, is that a fair statement?
No problem.
But, one, I'm Ronnie Parker, I'm the owner of this popsicle stand, and I've been here 21 years, and we really enjoy, what do you want me, buddy?
Not there.
All right.
Not there.
Okay. Well, I'm getting chopped off of that top one, but that's okay.
I think I think it's okay.
Okay, but anyway, I sincerely thank each of you for doing it. We've got a really good team that has enthusiastically asked me to do these seminars every other Friday night. And I'll also say that Slade Doherty is going to join us in a few weeks, or a few days. As soon as his schedule that's been booked up frees up, he's going to stay Friday nights and come out and talk a little bit about electronics. So we're really trying to give you a lot of free information. These guys were adamant, and I'm adamant too. We don't want to charge anybody. This is free information. We're not trying to make money off of you. We're trying to help you catch more fish. And to that end, I don't want this to sound too commercial, but if while you're here you decide to buy something, I'll give you 15% off tonight. But that's not an inducement to make you buy something. It's a little bit of a reward for coming. That's what it's meant to be. I can't do that on rods and reels, but I'll give you a little help on rods and reels too. But you got to come see me on that. And the main thing I want to tell you is you got 3 great guys tonight. Justin's a little bit. Well, first of all, you got Michael McFarland, who's going to be first. You got Justin Crawford. I'm not sure if he's going bat second or third. He's a little nervous as this is his first public coming out meeting, but he's very skilled as an angler. And then we got Billy Lawson, who really, him and Michael kind of initiated this idea. So
It was all Billy. This is Billy's hard work.
So
He's
Billy-
the one that's digging.
Billy and Michael and Justin all have passion for what they're doing, and we've all had long discussions. They want you to leave here being a better angler, and they encourage you to call them afterwards. There are no questions off limits. If while you're here you want to ask a question, raise your hand. That nobody's gonna ostracize you or say you're stupid, because there are no dumb questions that we've heard all of our lives. And, we got a guy here who's 20 times smarter than I am. He's a doctor, for goodness sakes. He's a medical doctor. But you know what?
I couldn't do anything else, so I did.
But you know what? He's here because he wants to learn more about fishing. So we all can learn from each other. So enough from me. I'm going to turn it over to Michael and Justin and Billy, and I'm going to get out of your way. So have fun. If you have any questions, raise your hand. Thank you for coming, okay?
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right,
Parker.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. And on behalf of Billy, this really is his hard work. I feel very honored and pleased to be here. But if Billy hadn't asked me, I wouldn't be part of this. So I want to make sure the credit goes to Billy, really. He's the one with the original idea and the heart and the soul and the drive behind all of this. So I'm getting first to talk to you thanks to him. My name is Michael McFarland. You may have heard of me. I'm a full-time guide on Lake Fork. I moved here 4 years ago from the West Coast, Arizona, California. I could talk till midnight. We could have a pizza party. That's kind of the nature of anyone who really knows me would start laughing. It's true. So I went first so that I can make it short. I want to kind of tighten things up so I can leave you room for questions. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's it. No, I got the real blessing to come here in 2013 and fish fork full time. And tonight I want to just quickly, my topic that I want to teach you is it's about offshore fishing. I was a tremendous offshore fisherman in California and Arizona. We almost have to be. We just don't have the shoreline vegetation, the growth of trees, the wood. We don't have those kinds of things, so the fish don't tend to live or spend as much time in the shallows. Here in Texas, in most of Texas, northeast Texas, where you have the wood, the trees, the vegetation. Welcome, guys. Come on in, please. You have fish that will live in the shallows majority of the year, but you do have sources of fish that use and exist offshore. My point of doing the offshore, people come to Lake Fork for really, really big fish. And I promise you that most of your really full-grown, mature fish, and I'm talking double-digit fish from the 10 to 20-pound class, don't spend that much time in the shallows. I'm not saying you can't come across a 10 or a 12. We're coming with, spawn that we see them. Yes, they have to utilize the shallows. But so what happens with big fish, really big fish, 12, 13, 14, 15-pound fish, is they do what I call bedroom and kitchen. The reason I like offshore stuff is I get to know it, I get intimate with it. A lot of other fishermen don't know how to do it. It's frustrating, it's challenging. So once I've got my homework and I understand something, it can tend to be all mine. And I don't care if another guy comes in and fishes it because he's not fishing it right, he's not fishing from the right angle. And here's my most important point tonight. I said that I moved here 3 years ago. It took me 4 years. And I'm about to ask a question, and I hope I get the answer that I'm looking for, because I wanted to give the most honest answer he can. But Kevin Sharp knows me pretty well, and he knows of the struggles that I went through the first few years. Kevin, have you not seen statistics in my pictures, in my consistency this year versus the past
Oh,
three?
much better, yeah.
Much better. It took me 3 years, 3 seasons to learn probably the most important thing about fishing Lake Fork. I actually got spun around sometimes and thought, God, do you know all of this stuff that you're getting ready to teach these guys, or don't you? Well, there's one factor as I get into this that you cannot forget. Wind, 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 wind. It is your friend, okay, but it also will mess you up on Lake Fork. We're going to talk about just a real quick diagram that gives you a breakdown of some offshore. I've got the shorelines. Here's a cove. I'm going to go ahead and just spill my guts here to make it simple. This is Lake Fork Marina. Okay? You launch back in here and you idle out, you take off and you run straight across to the greenbelt on the other side of the lake. Most people are leaving, going somewhere fishing up in Birch or somewhere, and they're leaving one of the biggest offshore structures on the lake. Immediately adjacent to the north is a shallow hump. It's a 4-foot top. It has a long eagle bar, which I call a ridge. That ridge drops into 20, 30 foot, but re-rises back out here in the middle. A lot of guys will know this as White Bass Hump, public hump straight out in the middle between Lake Fork Marina and Greenbelt. Top of this hump is 20 feet. Okay? Out the outside of it, it has a main Lake Creek, which makes a swing on this outside corner of this. Okay, next to it I have some breaks, some ledges, shallow water, trees, some vegetation in the back, a pond with a big brood pond with a dam on it, deep trees, etc. What I've drawn here from zero in the bank to the middle of the lake where the buoys are. Okay? We'll let these guys come on in here. I've given you a diagram of an area.
Hey, here's a photo, Chair.
Several football fields potentially, maybe even a quarter mile. But the buoys are way out here, okay? And here's this hump. So my question first off, I talked about wind. My question first off is, does the bass utilize some of this structure? And we'll get into how they use it in a minute. What do you think one of the most critical things that determines where and how they use the structure? I just said it. Anybody raise a hand and answer it. I got something for you at the end.
Wind.
Okay. All right. So west, east, north, south, east, west. Okay. It's very common for us to get wind from both directions, south, north, and south on a routine basis. Anybody have any idea? If this is the hump, this is the more offshore. This can be considered offshore. This pond can be considered offshore. Here's the willows in the water. Here's my first shallow 4-foot hump. This is shallow back in here too. But here's a little hump that's actually 2 foot on top, a long breaking. This is all offshore, okay? But if I was going to fish in this side, right here, let's say I wanted to fish this side, which way do I want the wind coming from?
South.
Anybody want to look at my measure here? North,
Southwest.
wind
West.
is your friend.
Say west.
I want that wind coming in from here. I want the wind coming from the northeast. So when everybody says northeast wind, oh, Lake Fork sucks. No, it doesn't. Fish right. I said the same thing. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. If I set up, this is what the wind's going to come in on. That's where the wind's going to drive the plankton. That's how the fish are going to set up into the current, into the wind. Now, which side of this would they set up on it that do that? The front side when the wind's coming in, or the back side when the wind's going over?
Back's the front side.
Bingo. The back side where the wind's going over. You get a lot of current happening. Lake Fork sets up north and south, so by the time this, even a 12-mile-an-hour wind makes rollers, if you look at the speed of that water's moving. Okay? We only have 1.5 footers, but if you look at the speed, the water's moving. So if I use this wall right here as a shelter, if I'm in front of it, I'm swimming in the current, fighting and fighting. If I lay back behind that wall and I sit down here in this nice pocket and I feed, okay? So I'm planting a seed about that wind. What if the wind's coming out of the south? Then they're going to set up behind it, okay? I've drawn one thing on this that's really critical for deep water fish. There's always a spot within a spot. There's a location within that spot that's more critical than others. Most of the time when you're offshore, and I'm trying to be rapid here, when you're offshore, you're looking at sometimes a half a football field to a football field area. Maybe even several football fields. We're only able to fish a small amount of this at a time. So having a breakdown of this whole area, this is 5 football fields. When I fish this, I want to talk about some key spots within this. And that's how I can go out and fish the hum, line out accordingly, and catch fish. But how do I get that bigger fish out of there? Besides the choice of baits and things, there are some tactics that are very critical about catching a big fish. It's called a spot within a spot. And that's what I'm going to take this down to here. I'm going to do some brief things about this and some description. I got shallow stuff. If anything comes, weather comes, these fish can retreat back to these structures. So for example, ponds and pond dams with trees on them are great places when you have fronts hit. You wonder where the bass went. I was on them yesterday. They're gone. I don't feel like where'd they go? They retracted. They retracted out offshore to some places that were safety. Maybe into the simple little cedar trees that were in the water. There's a break here. It breaks from 10 to about 22. It's a very solid break. If that's wind blown, that can hold fish. But within this, okay, big bass don't just all congregate like we are in this room, okay? They're going to be like a king. They're going to take the captain's chair. You're going to take the most comfortable part of that room, the most ambushing angle from that room, the best of the spot, okay? So when you're out here on this hump, and you're fishing over here on this side because Mike said it's wind driven and you're catching your fish, where would you say on that might have a spot within a spot? What does might mean?
Swing.
Okay, I'm going to actually use the opposite way. If the wind blows in here like Mike likes it from the northeast, right here on this corner has now become all of a sudden my spot within the spot. Why? Anybody looking at that?
It's a creek.
Because the creek has a main hook. That's right. So now I've got a hump with a top of 22. It kalispells off just a little bit, but when it gets to that creek area, boom, it has a creek break ledge. So my big fish now have a very rapid avenue on. They don't have to swim for a long ways to get back to security and safety. They always want that break, something nearby. Okay, so that corner right there, and when somebody asked to erase this, would be the spot within the spot. Okay, same thing, I've got a pond dam here. This is about a 22-foot pond. On this dam here, I'm going to draw it. Here's the actual dam part. Within that dam, there's quite a few trees, okay? They're a pain in the butt. They're tall trees. Inside down in the bottom is one big stump. Wouldn't you say that one big stump along that, we're going to talk about spots within a spot. So you have to get a sonar. You have to know how to use a down scan. You have to know how to use a side scan to be able to detail and map out the spots within the spots. This is an extremely popular point. It's called Chicken Ridge. It's extremely complicated. Way out in the deep here, in the 22-foot, you have tons of tall timber. Okay? There's a lot of tall timber. There's more out in front. But what happens on this is it gets fished a lot, and there's a plethora of fish. There's schools and schools of fish upon schools upon fish. So depending on the north wind, how we set up, I've done this. I gave myself these because I'm actually going to have somebody come up in a second. But black marks that I put in, because I did purple in this, actually let's talk about the green first. Let's talk about the ridges. You can see how these ridges come out. That's why they call it Chicken Ridge. It's a long, tight bar. It reaches 150 yards offshore. It's got so many trees that we call it Chicken Ridge because when we're running, we literally run like this hallway right through a set of trees, especially when the lake is low. When the lake is low, that's a really tight run, and it's accordingly named Chicken Ridge. A point of using this one, anyone familiar with it at all?
Where is it, down by a dale?
Yes, sir. Yeah. There are a plethora of trees on that. So when you go fishing, man, you really get caught up. Do I just pull up on the point and just fish? There's lots of trees. You can't, even if you did do that and you got bit, do you know which tree it came from? God, so many in there. So I spent some time side scanning. I made a brief idea of what I found is up here on some of this more ledging. I found some bigger stumps. They're in 14 feet of water. They're in 18 feet of water. You can't miss them when you look on the side scan. They're this big around instead of this big around. Those are more isolated. There's less of them. They tend to be in an area where they're on a break. They're right on the edge of the break. So those are the spot within the spot. So I could talk for too long on this subject. It would be really simple. I don't want to get into the how-tos, the line, the baits, and the things that I tend to throw offshore the rest of the season. But if I'm planting to seed, we'll do more graph education later. I think Slade Daltrey and I could be very, very beneficial working together, teaching you guys about even just setting your graphs to find this stuff. But if I planted a seed, I'm going to ask a question. I want 2 guys. These are magnets. The wind's coming from the south. How am I going to set up on that point? Look at my map. Go stick it where it should be. The wind's blowing from the south, and I decide I want to fish Chicken Ridge. Where's the boat going to go?
Oh man, first spot.
First setup. Wind's coming from the south. Remember, I'm going to nose to the wind. The boat's going to go, so that's coming from the south. Okay? He likes to be sheltered.
What can I
Anybody
say?
else? Anybody else? Wind's coming from the south. How am I going to set up on Chicken Ridge? Remember, this is Chicken Ridge. Okay, he likes to be sheltered too.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Okay, Michael likes to be right out here.
Oh, man.
We can't all be Michael.
Nose into the wind, nose into the wind. This was good here. Nose into the wind, and I'm going to fish the backside because the wind's going to be coming. If it's coming from the south, the wind's coming this way. Okay, it's this way that wind's driving me. So I'm going to have the boat positioned this way, and I'm going to work this backside ridge. And then I'm going to work the next ridge, and I'm going to work the next ridge, and I'm going to work the next ridge. So in essence, you guys were right being on the backside. You were playing Chicken Little a little bit, hiding out from the wind. Don't like that stuff to run the trolling motor. So in essence, if I ask somebody, the wind's coming out of the west, where would I set up on it? You don't have to hop up for the magnet. Wind's coming out of this way now.
Point into the wind.
Right.
Okay, wind's coming out of this way. There's a reason that I asked this question.
Bottom right.
Anybody? I said you don't have to stick this up there. You want to know why? Come on, someone be with
Yeah.
me. Come on,
Anywhere.
come on, come on, come on. We talked about it in the first one.
How did,
Wind is your friend. Hang on, remember? Come on. So if this one, let's see if he gets this. Where would I set up on it? Not bad, smart doctor, but honestly, doctor, listen to this. Good, very good. That was probably the best if there was an analogy. But this is no longer being wind blown, so I wouldn't set up on it at all.
no.
Okay? I would go to the other side of the lake and find a structure just like it being blown.
Trick
Okay.
question.
Okay, so now we got through that. Now let's talk about what a fishing with and how I fish them, okay? It's really hard to beat jigs. You can go anything from a swim jig to a grass jig to a football jig. You could literally make a tackle box out of just a jig. I'm not going to talk about the swim jigs because I'm really starting to just fish swim jigs. I can pitch docks with them. I can fish the shallows. I can fish them like a swim bait, a chatter bait. Of course, they don't do all those things, but it's so versatile. I can fish it zero and heavy cover. I can fish it in 55, 60 feet of water deep. When I came to fish these deep structures, I'll get to that in a minute. Let me stay with what I was. I like something heavy. I just believe that you're down there deep, you're probing the deep. The more you feel, the better. There's some guys that say half ounce, half ounce, half ounce. I live by half ounce. I just don't stay connected deep enough. And maybe because I used to fish at 55, 65, 75, it's pushed me to go all the way to a 1 ounce jig. In California, man, it was just a really important thing. It was part of the mainstay that even when a 1 pound bass eats this in deep water, I feel it. I know that he bit it. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to detect the bite, and harder it is to tell what's down there. So this is a Santone swim jig. This color is peanut butter. I typically, on fork, I will never ever use it on anything less than 20-pound test. Watch out, there we go. So I'm always going to throw it on 20-pound carbon. I use a double San Diego jam knot. I use a high-speed gear ratio, 73-1, on a 12-25 jig rod. This is a custom-made jig rod from Real Time Runs, and it's designed to my specs. They do make a jig rod. They make the same jig rod, but if you tell them the McFarland style, they're going to move the reel seat back 3 inches, which gives the rod a little bit more meat back here. What it allows me to do is a lot of these big fish that are coming out of these deep spots that I'm describing are a lot of junk, okay? And I need to set that hook with just a drag that just barely slips on the hook set, okay? I don't want any drag, but I want it to just slip. So when I nail into them that first time, I can, after that, like a tuna fisherman would, I can put meat into the stump of this and don't stop. And I bring the fish all the way to the surface, and I never let them go back down. Once the fish hits the surface, I keep the rod way up and high, and I just reel, and wallow the fish in. That way it's not in that cover. I'm not dealing with all that junk down there that fish and law of physics. He runs to the right, my line touches the first thing, and that's the law of physics. So I want a real stout rod. Again, this is a 1225 jig rod, real-time rod. Set it up McFarland style, and you will really be happy. It's fast tip. It's a 7-to-1 gear ratio, Shimano Corrado. You're not looking at big money, but you do need the better equipment for that offshore stuff. Needs to
What
be a
about
pretty.
braid to fluoro?
I don't like braid when I'm outshore. A lot of the reason is it's just can be too much. You end up, I got to carry a dowel rod. I break off a lot when I'm offshore. Offshore, I just, you're not able to go get to your bait. So plan on losing a lot of jigs. Plan on losing a lot of Texas rig stuff. And that's usually the two, Carolina rigs, Texas rigs, and jigs are the 3 ways I fish offshore. I don't crankbait them. I can, but who wants to lose $17 crankbaits at a pop on fork? I got a better one. I had a 10XD put in the back of my head by a client. I'm sorry, I'm not knocking my clients, but who wants that to happen? If I don't need to throw a 10XD out there and lose it in the wood, and you don't, why? Plan on losing some jigs and stuff like that. That's why I choose the 20-pound. It holds up. And when I really do need to break off, it's still hard to break it off. But I don't, 40, 60, 80-pound braid, and now I got to get a dowel rod, and they're tit for tat. It's a good question. Braid, you will definitely feel things more, but you have no stretch. So a lot of times when, again, I really like to lay the meat to the fish. I like to literally bring that fish up, keep the head turned. Braided line can actually rip a hole in the face of the fish. So I just want some stretch, but not no stretch. Quick question on hook sets. This is one of the things. If everybody want to pass that around, just leave that. You can feel that, what that rod feels like. As I show you some of my jigs. These are 1-ounce jigs. They're made by Santone. There's 3 favorite colors I have. JC Craw, Peanut Butter and Jelly, and Pake's Perch. Okay, so I've got a brim version. Anyone who saw my last seminar, I keep it very simple. I don't need 50 different colors of jigs to choose from. I got a crawfish jig, I got a bluegill jig, and I got a color that I like, Peanut Butter and Jelly. That's it. Those are my 3 favorites. I don't get crazy. I don't got 20 times different, all these different things to choose from. One of these 3 is going to get it done.
again for him?
One of these 3 is going to get it done on a daily basis. So pass these around, feel what they are. You'll notice too some different sizes in trailers. I do believe on fork that bigger trailers get me bigger bites. So pass those on around. Those are the jigs that I use. The 3/4 and 1-ounce Santone jigs, Pake's Perch, JC Craw, and PB&J. Okay? Before I talk about the other way, Carolina rigs, and those trailers, basically, you can kind of go your choice. I like crawfish trailers. I use the Rage Craws. You can use a lot of different things. LFT, the Flipper, is an awesome trailer behind it. It's a really good trailer. This is a new color everybody should check out, by the way. The Hyper Freak is also another really good trailer behind any jig, period. Okay. I choose the Rage Claws. I like something with the, paddling claws. Most of the time I do want that. I don't want non-active trailer when I'm fishing deep. If I was pitching and flipping junk, I might want a beaver or something like that. But when I have this deep presentation, I want some movement in these deals, okay? Before I go into Carolina rigging and big worms, which is the other way I fish this deep water, this is probably important, and I want to make sure I taught about this for a right time. Hook sets. I have a lot of problems with my hook sets and my clients. It's probably the most challenging thing since I did anybody else want to look at this over here? Since I did a description of the rod, I made the rod and designed the rod to kick the fish's butt. I want to clarify what I mean and how I do that, okay? I don't lay into the fish and have all this arm, shoulder, hip rotation like a baseball player or a golfer would. Okay? I believe in speed. Alright, I'm gonna ask a question. And I have another giveaway, whoever does get this right. And whoever doesn't is gonna kind of feel silly, but you all have to stand in the road, in the middle of this highway right out here. You get a choice. You're gonna get hit. It's inevitable. Stand in the middle of the road and something's gonna run you over. It's a 200,000 pound freight truck driven by Mr. Kevin Sharp at 1 mile an hour, or you get to choose a motorcycle at 200 miles an hour. So by choice, I'm gonna ask a question. You're standing in the middle of the road, you ask me, I ask you what you want to get hit by, the truck or the motorcycle?
I'll take the truck.
The truck.
Truck.
Truck. I got some smart people in here. Why? Why?
Mass time acceleration.
The truck's gonna bump you, and yeah, it's heavy. It's probably gonna knock you on your butt, and if the driver doesn't keep going and roll over you, you're gonna live. The motorcycle is going to absolutely implode you. Speed is much more powerful than big muscles and body. So I believe in stinging the fish. So when I'm making my jig, however I am, there's the bite. It's a whop, then the meat. Okay, it's not all in one. So it's just like if you see in the ocean, a lot of times once they got the fish is fighting, and then you'll see a guy kind of go, oh, unreal, and then he's not swinging those shoulders and rotate. Speed of the tip stings the bait, stings the hook in. Maintain tight, reeling, pumping. Rod stays at this angle all the time. So in essence, I don't reel the rod down and pull the rod up. Reel the rod down and pull the rod up. The rod stays up, stays loaded, and I'm just working the meat of the rod. Lift. Here, lift just like you would. Okay? That's how I get them out of the junk. So, quick summary, and I have just a few minutes for some questions. I did talk about this guy, which I promised Anna I would. Rod socks, protects your rods, keeps them from sticking on each other. I recommend that you get those. Any questions?
Yeah, I got one. So, I think I fished that hunt before, and it's loaded with sand bass, the one
Yes,
you're
sir.
talking about in front of when you find a ton of sand bass, do you assume there may be some bass there to put down the bass baits, or do you move off somewhere else and go somewhere else?
There's certain times of year that there will be bass with them, not always. More so in your summer, you can bet. And what goes through my mind when I see the sand bass there, the first thing is good, I want them there. A bigger bass is lazy, I call him a crumb eater. A bigger bass is gonna let those fish make a mayhem. Bits and pieces fall to the bottom, they eat the bits and pieces. The bits and pieces can activate other things in the area, crawfish, etc. So this is all part of the chain. If I feel there's just a massive source and it's owned by the white bass, I may come back. Sometimes those white bass will move in and make a mess, and then the bass will come after the white bass have been there. So depending on, good question, depending on the size of the school of white bass that I feel there, that's another important thing to that. If they're small white bass, I'm there. Wanna know why? Because I've just answered some things. The bass is there for the laziness, the crumb eating, but he's also hanging out with a group that, hey, go ahead and make a mistake, I'm gonna eat you too. Okay? So I'm gonna play with you, I'm gonna play with you. But if you got magnum white bass out there, you might not have them largemouths until those magnums clear out.
Move out.
Good question. Just get to know me or any one of these guys around here, and we'll tell you the certain times of year that they eat that. They get on that more. Just about ready to. Yes, young man.
When's the time that you can really catch big fish?
All year long on fork, man. All year long. The best time, obviously, is in the winter when they're full of eggs, December, January, pre-staging for the spawning. Catch them right in that window when they fattened up before they lay the eggs, and they're the fattest and the fullest and the strongest. This is the healthiest lake in the United States of America. It's basically the only man-made reservoir in the United States of America that's not fed by a river or a major tributary. It's fed by drains. These drains come off of farmlands, which constantly puts a fertility in this lake that makes it phenomenal. All species grow fast, very, very fast, more faster than most biologists have said. Statistics show a bass gains this amount, crappie gains this amount per year. They defy the rules. These fish, turtles, everything defies the rules. It's an incredible fishery.
With, right now, when we're out there, when you hear a lot of people fishing shallow, do you still, most of your tactics still out there fairly deep?
Right now, good question, for the now, I didn't talk about the now. Right now I split it. My morning is shallow. I'm throwing top water, I'm fishing less than 4 feet until about 11 in the morning. So my first couple hours are top water, then I go flipping and pitching. I can stay with the flip and pitch for the rest of the day because right now, percentage-wise, there's more fish in the shallows than deep. But I can also promise you, with all my heart and all my conviction, you're not gonna catch a 15-pounder flipping shallow. You're not gonna catch an 18-pounder flipping shallow. They don't live shallow. I'm not saying a fluke, it couldn't happen. She came to visit. At night she will. When she leaves the bedroom that I've been talking about, she leaves that bedroom, she's gonna go feed somewhere. She can go to a light at night. She's gonna come up on the shallow part of that reef at night. She can go all the way to the bank at night. So we didn't get enough detail to talk about that. There's still movements. But those bedrooms I'm running in the afternoons. I'm working that deep structure after 3 o'clock, 3 till dark. It's a good enough bite that I'm splitting my trips, which I don't like to do. It makes a really long day for me. But I split 4 hours in the morning, 4.5 in the afternoon. After 3 o'clock, they're really setting up on these structures.
So other than the surface, at early, you're going still to jigging all along?
Absolutely. Jigs, Carolina rigs, and big worms. Carolina rigs, I promise you, I'm not just trying to sell LFT. There is no better bait than that right there. You look at the bass show that Rick Carter and I did last July, and this is what we were doing. Catch a lot of big fish on a Carolina rig with that deep.
Chartreuse pepper hyperstick.
Hard to beat. Chartreuse pepper hyperstick. I have a few other colors that I like. The black magic can be really cool if the water's off color a little bit. But big worms too. I will definitely progress here. And the water's up in the upper 80s. I'll leave that jig just a little bit, and I start getting into big worms. Believe it or not, I'll run this 10-inch. There's 3 colors that I choose. Watermelon red's hard to beat. Watermelon chartreuse hard to beat, and then the Fork Secret. I don't need much more than that, maybe a purple. But I actually will glue some of these together so that I get an 18 or 20-inch worm. We're talking about fishing for some real fish here. I'm looking for 8-pound to 16-pound range fish.
And what size hook do you run on those?
Most of the time, again, I'm a 20-pound fluorocarbon, and I'm going to run 7 to 10 odd hooks, depending on how big the worm is. I've got a 13-inch jelly worm that I run about a 10-odd hook in. And I went into the pond dam last year in July, which is a bedroom of No Name. Everybody, I'll close on this. The pond dam of No Name is really kind of No Name itself is a bedroom at night. I mean, a kitchen at night for fish. Every night they make a move from the deep water. They come off of Chicken Ridge, come out of that deep water, they migrate in, they feed. Well, that little pond dam has a cut through it. If you know the timing when they're coming through, they'll stop up there to feed. And last summer I went 47 to 48 casts with a jelly worm, catching 5 to 7 pounders every cast. It was just, I couldn't believe it. Just giggling. Am I going to get another one? Bonk, bonk. Yes, I guess so.
And the weight you're using with it too?
Tim, when I do the Texas rigging thing out deep, I usually go 1/2 ounce.
Yes.
When I do it on a Carolina rig, I go 1 ounce, because that allows my clients to really throw it and feel it. So, any more questions? And I'm going to close.
Quick question.
Lots of questions.
If you were, like you were saying, you fish according to the wind, in a point where you're fishing a larger profile bait, like a big swim bait or something, would you consider it as predator becomes a prey?
Yes.
Would you change it up a little bit, because they're going to be
100%.
looking for more of a predator as a meal?
100%.
Okay.
Bass are a full-blown predator. It's the only fish that I know that even at 2 inches will commit suicide trying to eat a shad that's too big to fit in his mouth.
Mhm.
That means it's born with the genetics of either dumb.
So you would
Yeah,
you
or
would change
kill.
your direction as opposed to the wind a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Always know that. Now, sometimes they'll get up in those things. Some of your really big bass, they just rant and rave. So you have some waves crashing in on that stuff.
Mhm.
The bass aren't going to go up there and sit position and just wait patiently in that. They rant and rave in it.
Yeah.
They go back and forth looking for anybody that's shooken up, brim that's all distraught.
Mhm.
And they can eat. I mean, a 10-pound bass can eat pretty much whatever it wants.
Yeah.
We caught a big one the other day at Monticello, and it ate a duck right before we caught it. Small duck. That's how we knew it was a big one, because we heard it foul. We went up there and caught it up, catching the fish. So I've already gone about 5 more minutes. I mean, it's hard to stay inside of 30. It's hard to stay inside of 30. I know there's a few more questions.
What's the best color of bait that do you think is?
My favorite color of jigs, pakes, perch. Big bass eat brim and big bass eat crawfish. But I tell you what, it's hard to beat, and I know Brett Height would smile at me right now. It's hard to beat a bluegill or a brim color for a big bass. They just love it. Even this time of year, they almost have bass revenge. The bluegills gave them a hard time during spawn. You know, the shallow bite's where you need to really be. Take heed to this next seminar from Billy and these guys. I'm not a shallow water guy. I do it, I get by. I do it well enough to call myself a pro at it and guide, but I'm not the seasoned vet. These guys are gonna talk about bites that this year are gonna be better than ever. And the brim bite's about ready to probably go crazy because the bluegills are about ready to spawn, and bass love it. Bass revenge is right around the corner, and you can put a ham. I mean, you can sit on one bluegill bed and just put a ham on these fish.
Cracker baits, cracker G2, it looks like
A lot of different things. I can take and swim that. That's why I can take and swim that jig that I showed you. Just swim it, hop it. I can fish it in a multitude of ways, just the
a,
right
make it
place.
look like a,
Right place, right time, right color. So, guys, thank you. I'm going to continue to be here. You know, if you would maybe on Billy's site and stuff, look me up or make suggestions to Billy what you want to hear about, so that I can kind of get some of the. Check me out at McFarlandFishing.com, and I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Man, we got a crowd tonight. Standing room only in the back. My goodness.
See, that hard work pays off, don't it?
Hey, we're gonna move to a different spot next week. It'll still be here at the store. We're gonna get a little bit more room, more chairs. So we'll have some of these poor younger guys just standing up in the back. I'm gonna talk about this bait tonight a lot. So I'm gonna give y'all some. How about that? Woo! Thank you, Mr. Ronnie Parker. He did that. So everybody take one. There you go. No, you don't get one. That's my kid. My kid's over there trying to get one.
He's asking
That
questions,
makes me
Tara.
You better not ask me no questions, boy.
Hey, I'm donating this board here.
That's
Tell
a,
you. Oh no, Kevin, I'm
They
donating
got
this
over there?
board.
no, that guy. He's getting one too. There you
Keep it
go.
around.
Mr. McFarland.
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna be around for a while?
I will. I'm gonna stick around. Billy's going next. Cool. I'm gonna actually learn a little something here about shallow water. So yeah, I'll be around.
Thank you. It's a variety of colors. I don't know what y'all all get. Kevin Sharp, you don't get any. Oh, take it. Take it. Yeah.
Hey, give me that. Give me that.
Thanks, sir. All right. Well, y'all ready to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum?
yeah.
We're going to go from 30 foot to 0.2 foot. How about that?
Right.
It'll work? All right. I got a couple baits. I'm going to show you guys some baits that I'm using right now. We're doing these every 2 weeks. There will be a 3-week gap in this next one. We've got a Memorial Day Friday. Memorial Day Friday falls 2 weeks from today, so we're going to skip an extra week. So 3 weeks from today will be the next seminar here. But I'm going to try and keep it current. Being 2 weeks apart, you know, when you come up here, I'm going to try and give you guys information that you can take for the next 2 weeks and go catch some fish. The bluegill spawn is starting to happen. In some parts of the lake, there are a few brim beds starting to set up right now. When that's going on, you guys have probably seen a lot of social media posts, fishing forum posts, wherever you follow any of the Lake Fork guys, you've probably seen a lot of guys talking about frogs, right? Everybody talks about a hollow body frog, they're throwing a hollow body frog. The hollow body frog will catch you a good fish right now, catch a bunch of fish. It does catch your bigger fish on average. But what I like to do when they are biting as aggressive on the top waters as they are, I like to cover as much water as possible. These are my 2 tools. First one's going to be a 3/8 ounce, 6-cent Divine swim jig, and it's got a, I think that's one of my last few kicker fish tail slappers. The other swim bait trailer that I'm using is the Smash Tech, Smash Tail, and Smash Tail Junior. Primarily the Smash Tail Junior is the size I'm using. But that, if you guys can see, orange belly, green back, a little bit of blue sheen on it, that's just a perfect replication of the little brim, right? Right size profile. That's the big thing, guys, is size profile. General color view, you want to get the general color right, but size profile is important. If you see brim beds and they have monster brim on them, do not be scared to throw a giant bait. If you see brim beds and they have brim about that big on them, you better downsize from this. You better shorten that, you better get that little bitty swim bait, trim that skirt, shorten that swim bait up. Match the size, okay, that's important. The other tool that I use is actually the one they sell right here, the one that I just gave you. The Lake Fork Tackle Frog. And I'll talk about why this particular frog over other brands. I do throw 2 other brands of the soft plastic frogs, and that is a Zoom Horny Toad and a rivet. And I actually throw the bull rivet size. You might know what the bull rivet is? You guys are all familiar with the regular rivet frog? They actually make one that's bigger. It's called a bull ribbit. It's significantly bigger, has a deeper, harder thump, makes a lot more splashing noise. But for what we're talking about here, and I'll explain why in a minute, I'm throwing the Lake Fork Tackle Frog exclusively. It's the only one I'm throwing. For gear on those two baits, on the Frog, if you guys haven't checked out Limit Rods, there's a rack full of them right outside this window right here. Do yourself a favor, look. I'm telling you, this is not a Pro Staff plug. I mean, it is, but it's not just a Pro Staff plug. This is the best value in rods. This is the best bang for your buck you can find. And this is the best frog rod I've ever had in my hands. That's a 7.4 heavy, Limit 5 series. And I believe, you know what this one runs? Is it
149. Anything over 7 foot is 149.
Okay, 149. I know it's 130 to 150. So this one's in the higher. So this is $150. And I would put this rod up against any $300-400 rod that I've ever put in my hands for frog. And I've had some. I mean, I've had some nice rods. This is as good as it gets. That's my frog rod, 7.4 heavy. And then for my swim jig, and really for most of my movements, spinnerbait, my big crankbaits, anything that's got some size and weight to it that I'm chunking and winding, I'm going with a 7.2 medium heavy. I'm throwing 22-pound Lake Fork Tackle FHP, Fluoro Hybrid Pro. Strongest line I've ever put my hands on. That's my setup for that. Gear ratios, it is very important. Normally, if you guys that know me, some of you that may watch my YouTube channel, some of you that have been here, I normally say, gear ratio, whatever, you can slow down or speed up. This, what we're going to talk about tonight, you need a high-speed reel. 7 to 1. It's very important. All right. So that's the gear we're using. The deal is, when those fish are biting topwaters the way they are right now in these shallow grass flats, we'll cover area a little bit later, but in shallow grass flats, they're just destroying topwater baits, right? Everybody's catching big fish on frogs. Why on earth are you going to throw something that will slow you down and get you less bites? That's why I'm throwing those two baits right there. I'm throwing that swim jig, I'm throwing it out, holding the rod at kind of a middle height, and burning it. I am waking that swim jig over that grass. That frog, the reason I use that frog is because the Zoom horny toad is too light. When I reel it real fast, it just drags across the surface and the legs don't kick. The ribbit, the legs are so big that when I speed it up, they actually kind of foul up and kick out of the water. It's not smooth. That's the only frog that I found that I can throw and run it as fast as I want, and the legs will still kick true. That's why the Lake Fork Tackle Frog is very important for this technique. I'm actually burning this. You guys ever seen KVD fish crankbait?
Yeah.
On the Elite Series? Hey, that's what I look like this time of year. All day, man. It's just right on top of the water. Looks like a motorboat buzzing across the top. That's my theory. That's my philosophy. They're biting the top waters. Why on earth would I slow down for them? Hey, let's get as many as we can. Because you got that window, how long, 3-4 hours in the morning? Depending on cloud cover. You got 3 or 4 hours in the morning where you can just dump the clutch on them. Why slow down? Let's get them all. So that's kind of what we're doing.
When you, real quick, when you're throwing that swim jig now,
Mm-hmm.
have you noticed any difference in a single tail like I see here or a twin tail?
Right.
So,
So,
with just a swim jig?
so for this, either one can work. I throw the single tail because that's kind of what I always throw on a swim jig. My personal preference, I feel like I catch bigger fish on a normal swim jig retrieve with that swim bait profile. But with this buzz technique, either one's fine because you're just zipping it across. It's just waking. Like literally the weed guard on that swim jig should look like a shark fin at the surface. That's how fast you're fishing. On the areas that I'm looking for, grass, grass, and grass. The backs of these pockets all have some type of flooded vegetation in them right now. You can't go to a creek and not find some type of grass. The big key component, what's going to set one area apart from another, is going to be coontail or hydrilla. There's not much milfoil. If you find milfoil, it's kind of a real rare deal. But the underwater, submergent vegetation, that's your deal. That's what you got to find for this. Because what that does is allow a more expansive area for those fish to hunt. These fish are chasing this bait down across these grass flats, and if they've only got one strip, you won't hold as many fish in an area. And remember, we're fishing fast, so we want a big area. We're burning it up. So the more that coontail, the bigger, broader flat that you have with that coontail, which is most of what we have is coontail or hydrilla, the bigger area you have with that, that's the better area for this technique. There's a lot of areas like that on both sides of the lake. Really, you can probably go to whatever your favorite area is, and if you hunt around, you'll find some. And that's it. The other thing is, do not waste time. It is obvious. When you pull in there in the morning, the bait will be waking, the bait will be kicking around, the fish will be blowing up on them. If you don't see obvious signs of life and activity, you need to put that trolling motor back in the rack and move on. Alright, so that's kind of how I'm going about it right now, first thing in the morning, covering as much water as possible. We're getting a lot of bites in the first couple hours of the day. Any questions?
What areas?
What area? Everyone always wants to know what exact creek arm.
Tell us what area.
Well, we can't do that. Can't do that.
Birch, Dale.
Yeah, Birch is fine. I mean, yeah, I'm not, are you fishing? I'm not fishing in Birch, so yeah, go Birch.
We live in Birch, so.
In all honesty, Birch is one of the areas that has some of the most grass in the lake. So Birchwood, and Birch is such a big creek arm, and there's so many little corners and pockets in there that we could literally all go fishing tomorrow and we all catch plenty of fish because there's so many areas just like what I was describing. Oh, I forgot one thing I need to tell you. The blending of the grasses. Wherever you have a seam, so you've got like alligator weed or the shoreline vegetation that comes out from the bank, and then you've got the submergent vegetation. That seam is a very high percentage area. If you're in a boat by yourself, get right on that seam and throw right down it. Back and forth over and over again, right down that seam. That is one of your highest percentage areas. If you have some cattails, or maybe it's hyacinth mixed with gator grass mixed with coontail, the more mixture you get, all those different seams, those changes to those fish, these are different types of cover, and it's also a highway, just like a creek channel is, right? You gotta think of that fish's world, that grass is it's a solid piece of matter. So he's using that just like a lip on a creek channel. He's gonna go down the edge of that seam of that grass. And where those seams are creates little cuts. And that's where they're gonna run back and forth down there. That's where they're ambushing, that's where they're traveling. So it's really no different than when we fish a creek channel in the winter, and we follow that creek channel, follow those seams of grass where they blend. It's very important. All right, questions? Yes, sir.
For the pork frog, what would be one of the best colors to use for this time of year?
Yep. Watermelon red, which is the one I gave you.
Hey, great.
There you go. Watermelon red is the color I'm throwing right now. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. When you're throwing this bait and moving it as fast as we're moving it, it does not matter. It is a 100% reaction bite. They're not getting. That's the whole point of this too. They're chasing bait down. Don't let them get. Like we said, don't slow down for them. Hey, don't slow down and let them get a good look at it either. Force them into a decision. They want to eat right now. There's no reason to let them think about it. They'll make the right decision most of the time if you force them into one. Yes, sir.
You gonna go back way back in the shallows and work your way out, or you just gonna burn it all the way?
Man, this is the deal. We're covering so much water so fast. No, I start as soon as I'm in an area where I think I'm highly when I find an area that's got that grass spreading out. Hey, as soon as I start seeing some of that coontail, as soon as I start seeing that gator weed spread out, I'm fishing. And I'll keep going to the back, go all the way to the back. I'll go. I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew, Chip. So I'll start where I start seeing that grass spread out, and I'll go all the way to the back and go kind of around the back perimeter. And then if I notice, because a lot of times what will happen when you're in that further out part of the creek where it drops off quicker, that grass will spread out, and then there won't be any grass in the middle of the creek, right? But the further back you get as it gets flatter, sometimes that grass goes all the way across the creek, right? So we'll go around the outside perimeter, and then I'll cut back and forth across that flat wherever there's grass. We'll cover as much of it as fast as I can.
Lost a lot of fish
You
on
get
a
bit,
frog
you know,
last.
Do you ever slow down if you get bit and turn back around, go through an area?
Yep, power poles play a huge role for me right now. Sight fishing, obviously power poles probably play a bigger role during sight fishing any time of year. Other than that, this is it, because we don't slow down for anything except fish. So when I set the hook, as soon as I get that fish in the boat, power poles are down. And I will make 3 or 4 casts right there, because they do tend to pack up. They do tend to join up in wolf packs, and they're hunting that bait, and what they're doing is what's going on, guys, we've had shad spawned in this grass that have already spawned. So there's, not only is there shad schools in there, but there's their babies. These little tiny, these balls of this tiny microscopic bait. And hey, a fish will eat anything. It'll eat it as big as it gets, and it'll eat it as small as it gets. And when you've got, so now we've got 2 different bait sources here. Now you've got the brim starting to make their beds. Now we've got 3 bait sources. So they are cruising around, and they're looking for anything to pin this bait up against. How many times have you been dragging a jig or a Texas rig, and right when you drag it up against a bush or a tree, they hit it, right? Everybody felt that? That's happened? Hey, that's how they eat. When that bait comes by that grass, that's when they hit it. So what we're doing is that bait is spread out, and those fish are spread out. They're getting in packs and pushing that bait into a corner of a grass pocket. Maybe it's a couple of you know, strands of coontail coming up and they're pushing it in between them so they can ambush them.
Tell us about that L3 bait, because that one's gonna get in the grass. Are you fishing that more in areas where the grass is deeper or no grass?
The L3,
You know, the square bill that you guys.
oh, L7, L7,
L7.
okay, so that was a shad spawn deal and that is still going on. The problem is everybody knows it's going on. And it's hard, you gotta
Yeah.
take a number to get on these points sometimes. That is not, I'm not using that L7 around the grass
Okay.
shad spawn. That was for the windblown clay point shad
Yeah.
spawn.
Yeah.
It's a completely different deal than what we're talking about, but for that deal right there, what you want is, you'll see that red dirt on the bank.
Yeah.
You'll see either a main lake or a secondary point, either one's fine. But you'll see a point that extends out into the lake, and you can see that red clay running out into the lake.
Yeah.
And you want the wind blowing on it, and if you see birds,
Okay.
there should be fish there.
Game on.
Yes, sir.
Quick question with the frog. Are you running, like, you know, when you come up upon all the grass bed, right, and a lot of it's some of it you can actually walk right across, it's not in the water.
Mhm.
Are you running along that edge on the front half, or are you going out inside, you know, looking for a pocket, let it go down in and pull through? Because when we've gone into the pockets and come through, you come through, the vegetation's so heavy, I mean, the frog, you virtually can't even see it after you pull through there.
Okay, so for me, being a guide, it's a little bit different. If I was out by myself, if I was tournament fishing, my ideal situation, and you're talking about that alligator weed, palmweed, where it gets real thick,
Yeah.
to where the herons and everything's just like walking
Yes,
on top of it.
absolutely.
Right. So I don't bother, like I may throw my frog up there just to get a quiet entry, but I'm not gonna throw it way in there.
All right.
I'll just throw it on the edge and then bring it off. A bass, where that stuff is thick and green and lush, a bass cannot come through that.
And that's, okay.
That's the one thing,
So
he
we
can't
were
come
wasting
through.
some time today, because we're
Yeah.
going in, you know, and not running on the edge of it as much as we should have.
Right. So now punching, you can punch that stuff. If you get a big enough weight and you learn how to read kind of the weak spots in the mat, then you can punch it. And the bass are underneath there because it spreads out underneath there and they can get up under it. But the problem is they can't eat your frog through it. But what I'll do is I'll just throw up on there a little bit just to get a quiet entry and then work the frog off and burn it back to the boat.
I got you.
If I'm by myself, I want to parallel that edge. If that grass line's right here, if I'm by myself, I want to put my boat right up
Got
against it and keep my bait in the strike zone along the edge of that seam
Okay,
as long as possible.
yes, sir, thanks.
You said you're running a copolymer with this, with these, or?
No. Okay, so I'm sorry. That was for the swim jig. On the swim jig, I'm running the FHP Floral Hybrid Pro. It is a copolymer type of line.
What about the frog?
On the frog, I'm sorry. All my frogs always 50-pound braid. 50-pound braid. Yeah, and the reason is because hey, when they bite it on the edge of that alligator weed, they run up under there. You need all 50 pounds.
Does it have something to do with no stretch also for the?
No stretch helps.
Take the slacker out of the line real quick.
No stretch in that big 7-4 heavy rod. So we're gonna throw that. That's the one thing we didn't touch on gear is the hook. What hook do we throw on the LFT frog? I want a 6/0 EWG. That is a long frog, and anytime that I'm fishing heavy vegetation, I want as much power as I can get. Because just like we talked about, when they go into that gator weed, I want to stick something and I want to be able to just wrench him through all that grass and all that heavy stuff as hard as I want and not bend that hook out, not break that line, and not worry about my rod. That's why I got the heavy action rod, 50-pound braid, and a 6/0 hook.
Does that large hook also help keep it subsurface, keeps it from kind of skipping a little bit as a weight?
No, that frog, the way it's designed, and you'll see when you use it, it almost keels like a boat.
Okay.
Okay, so as you're reeling that frog, it doesn't want to rise as much because it's cutting water, so it stays even when you go. That's why it works so well at high speed, because even as you go to high speed, it's just cutting water like a keel on a boat. That hook is nothing to do with trying to keep the frog down. I'm using a weightless 6/0 hook. If I wanted to keep it down, you could use a belly weighted 6/0 hook or 5/0. Now on your Zoom horny toads, guys, you can't use a 6/0. It's too big. On your regular size rivets, you can't use a 6/0. You need a 4/0. If you're going to use a horny toad or a rivet, you need a 4/0. On the bull rivet and on the LFT, we use 6/0.
So real quick, then your frog, the way you've been running, the way you just said, no weight, but you're burning that right across the top
Yeah,
pretty fast, then, okay?
absolutely, 100%. You want to kick it up. So I'm fishing both of these baits almost like a buzz bait.
Because right now, we were running the Lake Fork, but we were running a 5 with the belly weight on it, so it's just getting underneath the surface.
Now, this is a deal right now, this time of year, kind of like what we were talking about, where they're chasing the bait,
Okay.
that I'm burning that thing so fast, it's right on the surface, it's spitting water everywhere.
Gotcha.
Yeah, buddy, we're moving at high speeds. So, the other thing too, frog hooks, a lot of people use the you guys seen the 2-prong frog hooks? A lot of people use those. When I'm fishing this extreme heavy grass that we're fishing right now, I don't do that. I'm gonna use just the single, okay, 6/0 EWG hook, and that's gonna allow me to be more weedless.
You're bringing it just up to the top and pricking it up in the top? or
Yeah,
you-
text-posing, sure, yeah.
Gotcha,
So we're gonna push it all the way through like that right there. You see that?
yes.
Hey, YouTube. I haven't forgotten about you, YouTube. Appreciate you guys watching. Y'all see that? So we're gonna bring it all the way through, and then it's actually got a nice little raised seam right in the middle. It splits on the leg, so it's got a perfect little spot for you to text-pose it, and then stick the hook point in, and watch how easy it pops out. See that? As soon as the fish bites it, it pops out. You got him.
I like how LFT made the frog with that place for that.
That seam is so handy.
They did that on purpose.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
What else we got?
How do you decide whether to sit still with a popping frog versus this fast movement? How do you
The
decide?
activity of the fish on that day, and we're in a time period right now. Most of these bass have had, especially in the areas where this is. I will say this: this pattern is going to be better in your mid-lake to northern area on Fork right now. You don't want to really go trying to do this on the southern end of the lake right now. It doesn't have as much grass, and those fish aren't as far along in their seasonal pattern. Does that make sense? The spawn is still you can still catch some bedfish down there. There is no bedfish to be caught where I'm doing this. They're all off the beds. They've had some time to kind of recover, and it's payback time.
Yep.
And they are getting after it. So you'll actually see the fish waking along the grass lines. You'll see the bait scattering, running for their dear lives. And when you see all that, it's time to move fast. On the mornings, maybe it's a cold front, like this morning. Cold front. If you don't see all that activity right away, then that's when I'm going to go to that hollow body frog, do a slow walk, pop, pop, stop, all that stuff. Okay? Yes, sir.
What's the best grass you can fish in?
Hydrilla. We ain't got much. What you got, Mike?
So if you did have a cold front conditions, let's say yesterday you were burning the frog and you just wasted them.
Yeah.
When you get there this morning, you know you got some cold front conditions, you switch to your frogs, how long would you stay with this, within an area before you move now? Because you slowed down, you switched to popping
Yeah.
frogs, walking frogs. How long do you stay with your fish under
How
these
long
cold
would I go
front
without a
conditions?
bite?
Yeah, how long
How long
before
would I
you,
go without a bite? So my deal there is I'm gonna go to a 2-prong arsenal in that situation. Post frontal morning, I'm gonna have that just in case. I'm gonna have this ready to go because hey, in the springtime the water temp doesn't drop very much sometimes. Even on high pressure post frontal morning, they'll still chase sometimes in the spring. I'm telling you, cold fronts don't always kill them in the spring because water temp dropping from 75 to 70 ain't always a bad thing.
that's my question,
Right.
that's what
So-
I'm wondering.
Okay,
Go, keep going.
so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let the bait fish activity and the fish activity in that area, because we're fishing shallow water, so we can kinda see what's going on. I'm gonna let that clue me in. If I'm in that area and those fish are not chasing, and it's a slow morning, then that's when I'm gonna go to that hollow body frog, and then my other technique, punching. 1 ounce weight, a 5/0 Hayabusa straight shank flipping hook, and an LFT flipper, a little beaver style bait, okay? And I don't wanna get too far in detail, because I could talk all day about punching. You know, I love
So
punching.
you believe basically they, how much of, here's the question.
They're gonna be
How
tired
much
of
of the water temperature has changed before they kicked out? You still believe they're still there?
If you have good healthy grass, I believe they will stay there all the way till the middle of July. At least, if the grass is good and
So
healthy.
these cold fronts will not kick them out?
They will not move them out. What they will do is bury. Okay, that's why we're gonna go slower over that cover with that hollow body. Pop, pop, stop, slow walk, throw it in the thicks, throw it on your gator grass. Okay, and if they won't come to the surface to bite, if their feelings are hurt that much, I'm getting out that big stick and I'm going in their house, and I guarantee you, if you learn how to punch efficiently and get your bait in and out, no matter how bad the bite is, you will always, every single day, you will catch fish punching. There's 365 days a year. If you have mats with 2 or 3 foot of water in them, 365 days a year, there's bass in there.
Notice what he just said, he's going to their house, and I talked the same thing,
Yep.
bedroom, kitchen,
Yep.
so that's really unique, their homes in essence, and I'm learning right now, their homes in
Yeah.
those shallow waters are potentially right there within the home and the bedroom, I mean, the kitchen and the
They're
bedroom
about
can
that
be
far
all the
apart.
same apart.
They're about that far apart.
Right, it gets all the same,
They're one tail pump.
right.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, Nick, go
Yeah,
ahead.
when we're talking about 12 plus pounders, is there anything you can do, especially for topwater, that can improve your chances of landing a fish that big?
of landing them.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
well,
like,
I mean,
if
it's
you get
just enticing them.
Getting
They're kinda
getting a
waiting
bite
for
from
it.
a giant.
Yeah, it's just kind of enticing them. So
Or
I would say
Love my bait.
I would say
Or
that your
dog.
odds on what we're talking about
Yeah.
today to catch the biggest fish in there, if you are specifically a big fish hunter, you go get you a Spro popping frog and you work that thing painfully slow.
Yeah.
That's the way because big fish are lazy. Mike talked about it.
Right.
Those big
Yeah.
fish are lazy.
They're
Hey,
like an easy meal.
I mean, the older I'm getting lazy myself. I'm starting to get in big fish class here, and I'm getting pretty lazy. Okay.
Finally.
So, yeah, what you want to do is present them. It's like a lot of the big baits that we throw. If you notice a lot of big fish techniques, big swim baits, what do we do? Slow,
Yeah,
Slow.
right.
slow. Big jigs flipping in the creek channel, what do we do?
Slow.
Slow. Okay, same thing. If you want to catch the biggest fish in that grass, the dominant fish, the one that's all blowed out, looks like me, he's lazy as all get out. Hey, work a Spro hollow body popper frog and just pop, pop, stop.
Is there a certain depth you want to start that at, especially around like reading the mast?
So-
you know.
The depth that you're fishing doesn't matter as much as the depth that you're close to
Right.
for a giant.
Absolutely. So if you're sitting
So if
on
the healthy grass is in 2 foot, the healthy grass is in 2 foot.
right.
And he's gonna use it. But that big fish will wanna have deeper water closer. So you wanna get on the areas of that grass that have the deepest water possible close. And sometimes that's 3 foot. If you're on Lake Caddo or Lake Palestine on the north end or Lake of the Pines, then 3 foot is huge,
Right.
huge. Out here, you're gonna want more like 5 to 8 foot on the edge, real close to your healthy grass. That's gonna be your big fish spots.
So geographically specific position, like right south of Birch Creek and actually south of Axon Bass City, there's that hump sitting out like 3 foot of water right, closing in that creek channel there for Lake Fork. That kind of be what you're talking about, where there's access to 3 foot of grass and then there's a super deep channel
Sure.
to run right off.
Exactly, that's it right there. Where they can do this,
Right.
be where they wanna be,
Exactly.
and then they can do this,
Right.
and be where they wanna be. Yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
Very cool.
How about hot summer? Do you stay in the shallow in the hot summer early?
That gets a little more technical, and for me, it's all about grass. It's, if the grass is healthy, if I have enough water underneath it, the hotter we get, I like to see 3 to 5 foot underneath my mats. But if I get to a point where I've got 5 foot of water underneath a mat, and it's healthy grass around it, it's healthy grass mats, yeah, absolutely. You got a hard time putting me in deep water. Because those fish, and a lot of big fish will. I mean, the 2 biggest fish that I personally caught, not my customers, but me personally, the 2 biggest fish that I caught last year were both punching grass. And they were both in about 3 foot of water. And they were both one was in May, like late May, and the other one was at the end of June. Hey,
I remember.
I mean, I caught one that was like 9.9
Remember
at
that
the end of June in 3 foot of water under a mat. Those big fish will stay under there all summer. All right, any more questions? You don't get to ask anymore, little boy. Little stinker. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for coming out. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Hey, real quick, if I may interject, since I didn't mention this, I had a lot of detail about how and stuff, so I'm gonna actually invite you all back in 2 weeks. My next seminar will be continuation of where I was, going into techniques and how I approach these, and some other things I look for on the deep water structure that determine whether I'm fishing or not.
All right,
Thank you.
3 weeks.
absolutely. Thank y'all.
Very
I'm gonna bring the next
So
guy.
where is the seminar? Where is it gonna be now?
It's gonna be here, but we're gonna change to a bigger room. We're gonna get more room,
Okay.
more chairs, because we're outgrowing our space.
Cool.
More
Alright.
garlic scent, I hope.
Huh?
More garlic scent. I
Oh,
hope.
it's a lot.
More garlic scent, yeah.
It's a lot stronger back there.
Yeah, a lot stronger back there. So next I'm gonna bring up, this is Justin Crawford. Justin Crawford is young in his guiding career, but I've known him personally for a long time. He is a very good fisherman, and he is one of the most solid people, and most nicest, kindest, caring people that you'll ever meet. So y'all harass the ever-loving crap out of him, okay? Thanks, Justin.
The kid can fish, he doesn't even need to be nervous. Just show him some good love.
How are you guys doing? It's gonna be hard to follow up these 2 guys. This is my first time doing this, so bear with me a little bit. I know a lot of these guys, he covered a lot deep, and Billy talked about what he's doing shallow in the morning times. I'm kind of doing the same thing as both these guys in the mornings. I'm starting out shallow. I'm chasing after the shad spawn, and I'm using little Zara Spook Juniors. The smaller, I like the smaller baits. Everybody else is throwing a little bit bigger spook. Right now I'm throwing a little bit smaller one. and I'm working it fast. I'm moving it as fast as I can and just walking the dog. And I like to find grass in anywhere between 3 to 5 foot of water in the mornings, or a secondary point where you have, you know, little table flat. Also in the mornings, I'm also chasing the shad spawn with the new 6 Sense Movement 80 crankbait. It's not new, but it's not a lot of people throw this bait. Mr. Lawson's actually the one who turned me on to this
Hey,
bait.
man.
It's,
You got that on my tackle box.
it's a great bait, guys. There's not a lot of crankbaits on the market right now that have an action like this bait. It deflects very, very well off wood. And I'm a shallow water guy. I like to be fishing grass, wood, brush piles. Most of the year you won't find me in more than 12 foot of water, unless it's super hot or super, super cold. And what a lot of these guys didn't talk about, I guess I'm going to focus on, is when that bite kind of slows down. After the shad spawn and the morning bite kind of slows down around 10 o'clock all the way till around 1 or 2, and the deep bite starts picking up, I'm focusing on throwing, my favorite color too, is really the only color I've been throwing, is the Watermelon Pearl Hyper Freak. It dies down in the morning to 10 foot of water, and I'll focus on where really river channels kind of break around points. Is really where there's starting to move out all the post-spawn fish. So you want to find main lake points and secondary points where a river channel kind of, you know, swings close to them. If you can find wood or brush sitting on those river channel swings, it's really where I'm focusing on. And if there's no wind, I kind of go down to my weight. I'll throw 1/16 ounce to 1/4 ounce. If it's real windy, I'll go, you know, 1/2 ounce. Let's see. I'm trying to think. The best way to do it also is the swim jigs, like Billy was talking. I'm really throwing a lot of swim jigs. I just didn't want to go into that because Billy talked a lot about it. But man, that bite is on right now. And if it's not this bait right here, when I'm throwing it, this is mainly all I'm throwing, is a brush hog or the Hyper Freak right now between 9:30 in the morning till about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I do like Mike says, and I'll go out deep and I'll find my deep points. I'm fishing all the way into 20, 25 foot of water. If you can find them sitting up on points certain ways.
And the rigging on it again?
Sir?
The rigging on it again?
My deep bite, I'm fishing Carolina rigs on my deep bite. That's all I'm throwing right now is Carolina rigs. And I'm Carolina rigging. I don't have any with me, but the Lake Fork Magic Shad, not the live Magic Shad. The Magic Shad kind of looks like a fluke, and it has a little paddle tail on the back, and you can dip it in the chartreuse glue. I always dip mine in the glow, especially with the murky water with all the rain and stuff. So I'm always dipping it.
What kind of line are you using on that topwater stuff?
Yes, sir. On the top water, I'm using
Are you using
15 to
braid or
17
mono?
pound mono. No,
Mono?
sir. Yes, sir. On my top water baits, my frogs, I use 50 pound braid. That's all I ever use on my frogs. And the frog's good too. I haven't been covering that because Billy talked a lot about it. But I'm throwing a hollow bodied frog in the morning as well, and I'm moving it real, real fast.
You ever use a braid on that, or you like?
Yes, sir. You can throw braid and get away with it. I feel like with my mono, I get a little bit more action, a little bit more pop out of it, and I'm moving it really, really fast right now. And you catch size and numbers off of it. Just by going down doesn't really necessarily take away from the size fish that are biting it, especially up there on the shad spawns in the mornings. If there's any questions you guys have, let me know and I'll be glad to answer. And also, my favorite thing is out here right now is a hair jig as well. A lot of people will throw the spoon, a lot of people will throw a football jig, stuff like that. I like a hair jig. And I'll throw it out there, I'll let it hit the bottom. As soon as it hits the bottom, 3-4 cranks, let it sit back down. 3-4 cranks, let it sit back down. And then sometimes I'll even hop it depending on how the fish is suspended in the water.
Who
I
sells?
just like to do a little bit something different when everybody else is on the spoon bite out here.
Who sells those?
You can, Hogfather sells them. My favorite's Hogfather. That's the only one that I really buy.
Oak Ridge has the hog farmer.
Yes, sir. That's right. That's where I go is Oak Ridge to get the Hogfather baits.
What are you running for as far as your rods and stuff for?
In the mornings on the top water baits, I like a little 7.3, a little bit shorter so I can pop it, you know, better. But most of the time I'm running a 7.6, unless I'm in some really, really heavy stuff, and then I'm running an 8-foot rod, so I can really dig them out of the grass and out of the brush piles. We had one with a customer about 2 or 3 days ago. I didn't think I was ever going to get out of the brush pile. And I only run 20-pound Seaguar line when I'm flipping that brush, the yellow label and Vizex. And I mean, that fish had us wrapped up in that brush for probably a good 5 to 7 minutes. And never, I mean, whenever I pulled it out, I checked the line, it was barely even frayed. And it pulled it right out of it. Yes, sir.
What about the length of leaders on Carolina rigs at different parts? I'm pretty fresh to a Carolina rig.
Yes, sir.
Are there, what advantages do you have as far as running it long? I know, you know, when to run it a little bit shorter, but how do you, man, what are you running, what length?
Yes, sir. In the summertime when they're out deep and I know they're suspended, I'll run a longer leader. Me, I even throw Carolina rigs in very, very, very first part of the post spawn. So like 3 weeks ago, I was throwing a Carolina rig, but I would throw a real light Carolina rig with a small leader up around the fresh, flooded left beds where all the fries have been hatched, and they'll come through and bite it. But if I'm out deep, especially this time of year, I'm running anywhere between 14 to 18 inch leader, and I'm running a really small hook so I can keep that bait up. And everybody else, they like the beads, and they like the clicking of the beads and all that. I'm not a big fan of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Me, I put an egg weight on there, and I put a bobber stopper on one side to protect my knot, and I put a bobber stopper on the other so the weight won't move. I like to feel the bottom. I don't like the clicking and all that stuff.
That's about the same I'm doing. I'm new to that. I've got a lot of learning to do in that.
Yes, sir.
You see some people with 4 foot leaders. You see some. I run some in shallow water on pines. A little bit smaller leader and just whacked them.
Right.
In 5 foot of water, but I'm trying to get it out there.
Yes, sir. Anytime I'm up in the shallow water, I like the shorter leaders, and I like to downplay my leader string too. I like to go down to anywhere. I can go down to 12 with my leader string when I'm in. But if I'm out deep out here on Fork, I'm not running the leader any lower than 17-pound test.
How are you working that Carolina rig? Are you dragging or?
Yes, sir. I drag them. I throw it out there.
Fairly fast?
No, sir. I'm slow. I like mine slow. Everybody, you can move a Carolina rig a little bit different. I throw them out there. I get as tight as I can to it, and then I just pull. And then I'm reeling back to the bait, and then I pull. And then when you feel the bite, instead of yanking straight up, you always side sweep.
Yeah, it just seems like dead sticking out here on Fork sometimes is very key, where
Yes, sir.
you don't even move it, and if you're moving it, you tend to not get bites. And
Right.
I've had times where picking out a backlash, then that fish just picks up on it.
Yes, sir.
And then you start fishing that way, and you start getting a lot more fish. So
Yes, sir.
knowing when to get aggressive and when not. I mean, how do you guys
How they're set up.
try to figure out the fish on a given day? Because what happened yesterday is not the same thing that.
It's mainly how they're set up on your graph. And I'm getting a lot better at that with the graphing thing, but when you pull up on a point and you see the way a bass is set up and the group of bass is set up, you know whether they're hungry or not, or whether you're going to have to trick them. Like we see in the summertime where I see a wad of, 7 to 10 fish and they're stacked up and they're ready in a position where they're not sitting too high up and they're not sitting down on the bottom, and that's when I like the bouncing effect, the up and down. That's when I like to move the Carolina rig a little bit faster. Football jig, stroking them up and down. When you know they're buried down on the bottom, it's a hit or miss. It's one of those schools where if they're buried on the bottom, it could be a school where the first couple of drags through and you get them fired up, or it could be one where you're sitting there and it could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 casts before you fire them up. But usually when you fire that school up, take them off as fast as you can and throw back out there. They're all competing down there. Very aggressive. Very aggressive.
How about Carolina versus drop shot?
I'm not a big drop shot guy, but I know it works out here. I'm not big on the drop shot stuff, but when the conditions are tough out here, that's one of the best go-to baits really anywhere in the damn country, I think.
So, Mike was talking about Texas rigging at a deep depth. Do you do any of that?
I do. A lot of people like the football, man. I'm a Texas rig guy. I'll put a 1 ounce or 3/4 ounce bullet weight on, peg it, and I'll throw a big old brush hog or a big old worm out there. Not to bash the football jig, because it is a great bait out here.
Right. Do you find that the strike zone, especially when Texas rigging, is a little bit different? Like, I've heard a lot of people say that they don't necessarily need to be on the bottom Texas rigging to be able to feel that, or to get into the groove of that strike zone.
You don't necessarily have to, no.
Right.
A lot of people will, because that increases, I think, your chances because you're hitting. Not only can they see it, but they're hearing it, and they can find it easier. But there's a lot of times where even like a 10.5 or 12-inch worm, where I'll throw it out there, I'll let it hit the bottom, and I'm literally just swimming that worm off the bottom.
Right.
And you'll get strikes like that as well.
So when you're Texas rigging, more or less, you're almost fishing it suspended, right?
For the Texas rig?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. If you're fishing for suspended fish with the Texas rig, then you're wanting to pop and stroke it.
Right.
Or you're wanting to swim it, If you see them set up suspended. Most of the time, if I see a fish suspended, I'm not throwing a Texas rig. I'm throwing a spoon, or I'm throwing a hair jig, or a square, or a deep diving crankbait.
Right.
But that other hair jig was very successful for me out here last summer. When everybody else is on the spoon bite, I like to do a little bit something different because there's so much pressure out here. And the hair jig, I did very well out here last June and July on the hair jig.
How big a jig, like an ounce or half?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll throw up to an ounce. That way I know it's on the bottom. I'm a guy that likes heavyweight. I like to feel the bottom. I like to know I'm down there.
Do you find that adds to your hookup ratio a little bit more, feeling the bottom? especially during like Carolina rigging or Texas rigging, like you were saying?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you feel the bite a little bit better, in my opinion. I mean, everybody's different. Some people say no, with a lighter line, as long as you're on the bottom, you're gonna feel that bite better. I just know I'm on the bottom with that heavyweight.
If you're fishing like anything from 25 plus, do you know,
Very,
get magnum size with some of the weights, the baits, all that
you won't
stuff?
you won't find me, it's very rare I'm in 25 foot or more out here.
Right.
Very rare.
Right, I got you.
But if I am, it's mainly road beds. Fishing those old road beds, or some humps, but not many.
Right.
And that's normally in the hottest part of the summer or the coldest part of the winter.
Very cool.
Yes, sir.
With the hair jigger, is it just a cadence for you, bouncing off the bottom?
Yes, sir. And like I said, it's if you see them, if you know, just fishing off instincts like with my buddies and stuff, when we grew up and we had hair jigs and we had spoons without grass, you can go out there and you can kind of find what they're wanting. You can go out there, start, and just work it off the bottom. You know, 4 or 5 casts of that area doesn't work, start swimming it off the bottom, then start your stroking. But if you have graphs and you're good at reading them and you see the way they're set up, if they're suspended, don't even worry about working it off the bottom, start stroking it.
And what kind of action on the rod for that kind of stuff?
I like medium heavy, 7.6.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And a lot of people, my football jigs, and then if I'm throwing it in deep water with my hair jigs, the big 1 ounces, I'll even go up to an 8-foot rod. So I know I have a lot of hook set. And I always run 7.31. I don't have any slower gear ratio or any faster gear ratio, because to me, if I'm wanting to slow down, I can slow down. If I'm wanting to speed up, I can speed up. I don't have to adjust to every rod that I pick up. I only have 7.31. Any other questions, guys?
I've got one more, just out of curiosity. If you're going in, say, Birch Creek, one of the small pockets off of Birch,
Yes,
water
sir.
temp right now is what, 75, 76?
Yes, sir.
So this time of year, you've got one of the little pockets, got a shallow grass flat in the back. You've got grass running around the sides with a deep bank right off the bank. Are you going to the back? Is that, you're gonna stay
No.
out in front?
It depends on when I hit it. And I'm focused on a lot of grass right now. There'll be some days where the grass bite's so good, I'm not leaving. I'll fish it all day long. But if, let's say it's 10 o'clock in the morning, the shad spawn's over, and I want to fish grass. When I pull up to that grass mat, I'm going to do like Billy said, and I'm going to throw down the lines of it first. You know, I want to work my way into it before I get in the back of it and scare them all out. You know what I mean? Work your way into it. So throw down your alleys, throw right on the edge of the grass line. You can even Texas rig around it if it's a slower bite, and then just slowly work your way back into it. And it took me a while to figure out what parts of grass are good and what parts aren't. But in Birch, there's so much grass up there, it's hard to distinguish the good from the bad. So if you have a map or you have Navionics, do it like you would anything else. Don't look at the grass, look at the way that map is. And look at the way it's laid out. If there's a river channel running under there, if there's a point or a drop off, you want to fish that grass mat that's, you know, around that type of area. Yes, sir.
I think something else Charlie was trying to say was, if there's grass down both banks, do you fish that grass on your way to the flat, or just go straight back there to the flat?
So what do you think?
If there's grass on the banks as you're going back into a pocket,
Yes,
to a
sir.
flat, will you fish that grass down the bank on the way back?
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
just go to the back and start
No,
right there?
most of the time,
Fish the way in?
most of the time I'll start on one point, work my way all the way back in it, and then come back down it one way like this. That's how I usually do it. Now, if it's a better bite, like right now, the secondary points are good. So if you're wanting to, you know, have a better opportunity of hitting different grass patches, and you're wanting to, you know, hit different locations, then I would focus on the grass patches that are the last little bits of ones leading out of those secondary points in those coves. Don't go all the way back in the back. If that's, you know, if you're wanting to hit different areas, you're not wanting to stay in one cove, then focus on the last little bit of grass leading up into those coves.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions, guys?
Literally though, how fast are you working that spook?
Pretty fast. Pretty fast. Depends, like this rain that we just got, it cooled it down. I'm working my frog this morning, or whenever he came, we were working the spook and the frog a little bit slower, and it was working. But honestly, the topwater bite wasn't as good as it has been. I don't know if it's because the rain did cool the water down a little bit, but we were catching all of our fish before we came up here, all on this bait right here, the Hyper Freak, around grass. We're fishing in 8 to 10 foot of water around river channel swings where I know there's brush piles and I know there's some heavy cover.
Are you just Texas rigging that? Is
Yes,
that
sir.
what you said?
Texas rigging it. It was windy today, so we had to run up to a half ounce. He was running half ounce, I was running a quarter. I should have had a half ounce myself.
What about hook size for that? You go with the EWG obviously, or?
I don't do EWGs. I don't like them. I don't like them.
Oh wow.
If you put an EWG, people argue with it all day long. If you put an EWG on a piece of paper right now, and I put where I tie my hook up to on the head of that, and then the barb on it, and I run it across that piece of paper, it won't catch it. If I run a regular straight shank hook on it, then it catches that paper every time. But at the same time, you know, the straight shank hooks, your bait slides down a little bit more, blah, blah, I just don't like them. Only time I run it, the EWG, is when I'm Carolina rigging, and even then sometimes I'll run just a regular straight shank hook.
So Mike does the double San Diego jam knot, I think is what double San Diego jam knot. You Palomar, Trilene.
Polymar?
Yeah.
Yep. And then on your top water spooks, I know it's pretty embarrassing. I don't know the name of the knot, but I know how to tie it. It's a little loop in it, so when you tie it, you're gonna have a little loop in your knot, to where whenever you're working this bait, it's not cinched all the way to it.
Called a loop knot.
The loop knot. Perfect. The loop knot. That way that bait will turn, you know, more so than it would if it was tied all the way to it.
Do you walk it all the way back, or are you pausing ever so often?
I walk it
Even
fast.
when you're working fast?
Yes,
You
sir.
still all the way back?
Yes, sir.
Never stop?
Never stop it.
Like
Never
getting
stop it.
class.
If that bite is where I'm getting a lot of blow-ups and they're not hitting it, I'm taking this off, putting the whopper plopper on. As soon as I'm running and they hit it, then I usually just stop it. And I have a feather on the back of my whopper plopper where it'll
With the one plopper, do you run a smaller size or have you?
smaller one, yes sir. The big ones have been working. I'm friends with a lot of guys and they're using the bigger top waters and they're working for them.
Yeah.
I know I catch more numbers, I feel like, with a smaller bait.
How about the blow-ups on a frog where, like I missed a bunch last weekend, what's the key there?
You will. The key is the Lake Fort trailer hook for your frogs that we sell right here. And if you're not around it,
On the soft
if you're in a really heavy grass and lily pads, that trailer hook will kind of mess with you sometimes, and you know, always hooking up. But if you're fishing a frog in an area where that trailer hook's not going to mess with you, then I would definitely use that trailer hook.
And you gotta pause too a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever modify some of your frogs, like bend the hook out, cut the skirt down, anything like that?
I cut one of the tails to make it.
There's
Walk the dog better.
Andrew Grills in one of the Don Hampton's little deals for the Lake Fork area news to bend that hook out just a little
Bend
bit.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and then it kind of picks up a little bit
Get a
more
better
ratio.
hook.
I found it to be somewhat true.
I got one more quick one.
Not a problem, man.
I'm not a big top water guy. I
Yeah.
know it sounds bad, everybody else is, but does color make a difference?
No, in my opinion, it doesn't.
I don't see why. I mean, I personally don't see why. But
I mean, you know, I got my just basic colors. You know, I want something with a little bit of silver on the bottom, something that's just bone white, and then something that's solid black, and that's usually what I go with. And on my topwater frog right now, since the bluegill are spawning, I'm using an orange belly frog up around the grass. Where since the bluegill are starting to pull up and spawn, just kind of match the bluegill a little bit better.
Good answer.
How are you fishing the whopper flopper?
Pretty fast, yes sir. Not just, I mean, you don't just burn it, but pretty, as fast as it would retrieve in, as fast as you could walk that spook, is as fast as you would pull in that whopper flopper. And the only time I'm throwing that, like I said, if I'm getting a fish like today, after this rain, it seems like they're a little bit more sluggish and not wanting to top water as much. And that's when I'll throw on a frog or that whopper flopper so I can run it, stop it, run it, stop it. And you can do the same thing with the spook. I just feel like when they're biting it short, that whopper plopper's butt end sinks down more in the water, and that little feather tail that I add on that whopper plopper dangling. I don't know if that's what it is or what, but I just have a little bit more success when it's a sluggish bite top water with a whopper plopper over a spook. Any other questions, guys? Awesome. Got this out of
Sorry, I got myself trapped back there.
Oh,
Alright guys, I guess that's it. Hey, we appreciate every one of y'all coming out. We appreciate every one of you and you and you and you and you and you. Y'all watching? By the way, if y'all want to wave to everybody on YouTube, it's right there. So anyways, well, we will do a 3-week gap. Like we said, 3-week gap. Stop. 3 weeks from today, we will do another one of these and we'll have more spacious accommodations. Go out there, check out those limit rods, get some more frogs, and whatever these guys talked about, get after it. Y'all catch some fish this weekend. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Billy.
No problem, brother. No problem. Thanks for watching your Lake Fork, guys, as always. See you guys next time.